Hey guys, how you doing? All right, let's just check to make sure all the streams are rolling. Yep, they're all going. Let's get it. Let's get this a going. Okay. Welcome, welcome. If you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, or Kick, to Chess Cruncher TV. And if you like what you see as you're going, please click follow or subscribe. Either one works. And also, if you can, much appreciated, a thumbs up for on YouTube. Thank you so much. Okay, we're doing a game between V. Gashimov versus M. Carlsen. So V. Gashimov and Magnus Carlsen. Gashimov is actually, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, but sometimes I pronounce the name wrong, and I apologize if I am. That the whole thing is you have to make sure that um, you know who you're playing, who the people that are playing are. And so what we're saying is Magnus is gonna be black here, and white is his opponent. Gashmov. Okay, so Gashmov plays e4, e6. We're doing the French defense, by the way. D4 and D5. This is the French defense, the normal variation. What this does is it leads into three different types of play. I'll do the move that was actually played in the game, which was knight to f. Um, Knight c3 and then knight f. This is one line. There's a line where white plays e5. There's a line where white plays knight e2 here. Different type of variations, and there's even a line where bishop to d3. Not as strong, but those are all different types of lines. And so, but in this line, then uh, Gush, Gu- uh, Gashimov actually plays c3 here, knight c3, and Magnus plays knight f6 here. And this is going towards a classic variation of the French. There's what was actually played was bishop to g5 here. There's a couple lines that could actually be played for black. One line is let me turn the page to make sure I get to the correct move order first before I do anything. There's a way that you can actually exchange this pawn here. And Madness actually went down the pawn exchange variation. This is a game in 2011. There's another variation where the bishop can go to e7 at that point, and then you can actually play that. There's also a variation where you play h6 here, and then what you do is he plays h4, and then you go g5, and then you try to take advantage of this weak pawn there. But in this line, white would actually exchange, and then you would play queen takes. Some players have actually, which isn't a bad move, have played g takes f6 here. This is a move that you could play. And what this does is it allows, you have to be careful though if you play that move, because of one thing, it allows white to actually grab this pawn here. And so then you have to say, is it worth, you know, kind of fracturing these two pawns, and you have to say, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I don't know, you know, you could actually just take back here. Yes, you're gonna have these weak pawns, but you have bishop g4 here, knight c, and then the bishop comes in, and the queen comes out and you castle. So that's a line, but Magnus didn't want to go down into that line, so he actually just took the pawn right away, alleviated a lot of the tension, and said that I'm going to be getting bishop e2, but it's going to be on my terms at that point, and there's going to be no pawn center for white. He's going, no, 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 no. No pawn center for you, my friend. So he takes. And then knight takes. And of course, there's really one move that black can play unless you lose a pawn. So if you played knight here, you can't play any other move but this move here, bishop e7. You could, but you're going to be losing, completely losing. This is the only way that you can equalize as black, because otherwise, what's going to happen is if you play like knight here, the knight would actually take. After pawn takes, yeah, you're still okay, but your pawns are fractured and it's not the best continuation, and the bishop would drop back and guard, and white would have it'd be an equal game, but white would have a very tiny, tiny, tiny advantage. And so that Magnus didn't want to go into that. 1 second, got to rearrange my chair really fast. There we go. Perfect. Sometimes the cushion doesn't get in the right spot. So Magnus doesn't go down that line. He avoids it like basically the plague, and he plays this and plays bishop to e7 here. So that when knight takes, and if knight takes, bishop takes, and queen takes, he keeps his wonderful pawn structure. And at that point, he has an advantage, and his advantage is he has one more active. He has like two active pieces where black has no active pieces. He also, with one move, could actually play e5 here after castles, of course. e5, unleash both his bishops, and get a far superior position to his opponent. Gashimov played bishop takes, and then bishop takes. Oh, actually, let's see, bishop takes. Oh, he played, interesting. Magnus went down the more sharp variation of f6 here. He wants to keep the two bishops on. Interesting, very interesting here. This is a line also that you could play. It's very sharp. If you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna fall into white snares and basically get into a vice, and then he's gonna just crush you because of your pawn structure here. But remember, you have the two bishops. You have the black dark squared and light squared. So what Magnus is gonna want to do is either push something like e5, f4, f5, and then potentially try to get a lockdown in the center. This is the kind of setup you'd want here if the pawn pushes, of course. And you're wanting to just lock down the king side and eventually play like the bishop, maybe this bishop out somewhere here or something, and then the knight out, and then the queen up, and then you're going to castle king side. Actually, right here, and then king side. So it's our queen side. So that's that line. That's actually a very interesting continuation. That's super duper interesting. There's this line here instead of the bishop move. There is back here. I wanted to show you one other continuation I forgot about. I appreciate you sticking with me on this. Knight b to d7. Knight b d7 here is also a continuation where if the bishop, let me see, knight b d7, knight f6 here, or knight f3 here, bishop to e7, and knight takes check, bishop takes h4. This is actually a burn variation where you have to be very, very careful how you handle this as black, because this gets super duper sharp. Because if you take, then what'll happen is you're in a problem. What happens is black usually castles here, but I'll show you what would happen if takes. You would think that the knight would want to jump in, right? Not so. The knight doesn't want to jump in. You're actually wanting h takes g, and then what this does is it adds a rook attack on the h7 diagonal, or h7 file, and what would happen at that point is bishop d3. If like black castled at this point, this would be super duper dangerous, because of bishop to d6 or d3 here, which is actually almost completely winning for white. Surprisingly, this is a one position almost, because you really can't play h6. You can, but then what would happen is you would take, and you'd have to take, and rook takes, and then now you're open to the whole world with the knight coming in, the queen coming in, and it's almost game, set, and match at that point. So that's why at this point he didn't. Let's see, where am I at? Bishop takes. Sorry, bishop takes. Bishop takes. Castles here. Sorry, castles. And then they had bishop d3 for white. c5. White wants to nuke. I mean, black wants to nuke the center, which means get rid of all these pawns, and then black can actually develop his bishop to d7 to f6 or c6. D7 to c6, and then he has bishops with two scopes, cross scopes like that. Okay, so bishop d, c5, queen e2. Getting out of any ideas. C takes. Queen e4. He's threatening mate now. So he has to play g6 here. And then white goes castle queenside. And at this point, white has a ready-made attack already in his pocket right now. He has a ready-made attack. And that's the whole setup why sometimes these positions are kind of choppy. You have to be very careful because white has the idea of h5 here, which would basically disintegrate the pawn's shield around the king. And if he got if he got one more move in, we'll say, let's see, what could black play. We'll just say black tries to give he moves his king up. This is actually a very strong move here. But actually, I'm sorry, no, that actually loses a piece because of check, check, check. Yeah, that's actually a mistake. Sorry, I need to not h5 yet. You got to prepare h5. You prepare h5 with g4 here. And then what you'd want to do at that point is retreat the bishop back either to f4. You could actually, at that point, if you wanted to, retreat the bishop to f4, and you're still keeping a slight advantage with h5 here. That's an idea. So there's play there in that setup. They're also saying potentially b5 here to remove one of the attackers of the or defenders of the king. Grab this off the board, and then what you're left with is for black a bad bishop. And so that's a move idea. But he didn't go down any of those. He kept with the old type of this setup is super sharp, and Madness likes sharp positions. One second, let me get a drink here. The sharper the positions, the better that Madness likes, I've noticed. G takes, and then now we have knight f3. Yeah, his opponent, Gushov, actually, or Gustav, we'll call him Gustav. Gustav actually has played knight to f3 and Madness's turn, and he plays f5 here. Like the idea that we were talking about, getting this complete bind and trying to basically maneuver these knights. Now Gustav has to play. He has to play properly. He actually plays. Let's see, knight g3 here. There's another line where let me see. I want to make sure I'm doing this right. If instead of this move here, let me see what move did he have there? Is this is Instead of, okay. Oh no, this is an okay move here. There's knight to there's this move here, knight c3, which is hoping to acquire a future d5 push here. He's Gustav is trying to take this. We'll just call him Augustus. We'll call him Augustus because that's a lot better. Magnus and Augustus is trying to play d5 here, and that's what this move has is pushing for. So Magnus plays a6 to stop any knight infiltrations in. G3 here. Oops, G3. This allows to get the bishop out with like fianchetto and castles. Because on this line here, the diagonal here, the bishop has a lot of scope. It's a more beautiful piece there. B5 here. This will be getting play on the queen side for black. So black's playing on both sides of the boards, one in the center and one on the side. If you can get a lockdown in the center, you can start playing on the side. And there's actually a complete lockdown for black here, with these pawns actually lock the center down via here and here. So no knight move actually. A pawn move could be played there, but that wouldn't actually be the best idea because of bishop b6, and after takes, queen takes, you have a devastating pin on this, and so bishop would have to come up to b2, and yeah, it gets very fun at that point. Not for the side that's getting attacked like white. Okay, after G, you have b7, so they call it the standoff here, the cowboy standoff. And then you have castles for white, and castles for black. You're thinking, what in the world? Why would you castle kingside with your kingside open? There would only be a problem if you could actually get to the king, and you can't get to the king because if you tried to infiltrate in via knight to g5 here, the knight would just come straight off. And if you try h4, then you have the beautiful move of f4 here, and then this again weakens white's structure. So it's like, as they say, in for a penny, in for a pound, are throwing everything in the kitchen sink at them. This is that move there type of setup. Okay, so that'd be a line that they'd be going down, but it didn't happen. So, but I just wanted to show you the potential line that potentially could arise if knight, instead of this move here, knight c3 was played. But Augustus doesn't want to have the idea of playing of that type of line happening. So Augustus wants to stay more towards the king and try to maybe get h4 in after bishop maybe d3, queen e2, castle queenside, and try to get a kingside ready attack going. That's an idea because the position's actually locked here. So c5 would be played here for Magnus, which is considered an interesting continuation. It's pretty strong. It's a strong move here. Such a move usually leads to a glory, or as we would say, an obliteration, which means if if black could get their accomplishment of taking here, it would lead to a glorious position of where an open game would happen for his two bishops. But if he doesn't get that in, and somehow there's a lockdown, then it turns into an oblivion move, which is not very good. So bishop to b5 check. There we go. You can hear it. Bishop d7 here. Bishop takes d7. Queen takes d7. So these are all forced continuations. And then d5 was played by white. Another interesting continuation by Augustus. He's wanting to kind of weaken these two pawns. He's wanting Magnus to take with queen takes. Yes, Magnus would win a pawn here. Queen takes, pawn takes, but these pawns end up becoming vulnerable throughout the entire endgame. Since they're going into an endgame, it would be very bad to actually allow that to happen. So and we're going to step back. I'm going to get a sip of tea. We're going to step back and we're going to talk a little bit about this here. The idea that um, Augustus wants to play is he wants Magnus, of course, like we said, to take that so that he would have the theory of two weaknesses on Magnus, which would be here, here, and here. These are weaknesses, and then he would have a weakness of the king trying to defend the center, so he can actually use all those to his advantage. Augustus could. Magnus wants to keep the position. Basically, he wants to keep the pieces on the board, and he wants to try to hold as much as he can to get to where he's more mobilized and into a better position. So that's both ideas. One is Augustus wants to trade down. Magnus wants to keep the pieces on the board and try to keep as much activity alive because of his pawn structure. So just a little bit of a heads up there. Okay, taste, d5. E takes. Wow, he actually went down that line. Okay. Wow, then he took there at 95. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that one. I don't know if taking was the best. It's kind of scary. Queen e6 is the best continuation for black because you're pinning, and I'm thinking that does Augustus play? Yeah, I think he has to play f4 here. He plays f4, and this is a very critical, powerful knight. It's super duper strong. And there's the Magnus played a good move of knight to d7 here. He wants to actually castle queenside and potentially play on the king side. They're saying that a better continuation would have been actually harry the h pawn with h5 here, and you're preparing a ready-made attack. You don't need to really kick this knight out. There's no real threats for in the position, no breaks, because if the pawn tried to push to c4 here, like white tried c4, the pawn can actually go to d4. You got a protected passed pawn, lock the position down, and now you have a ready-made attack of, you got it, h. There's actually h. I think you could actually, if you wanted to, play this move here. I don't know. No, that's actually wrong. You wouldn't want to push this because then they would take and the pawn is protected by the queen. So it is forced to actually go d4 here. This is forced. And then you prepare, you wait for h4. And at that point, your white's getting into a bind where they do not want to get bound up like that. Not good, not good. So Magnus plays this here. He plays knight d7. Castles. And now here comes the all-out blitz. You gotta love it when they castle on both sides. Probably not the best continuation for black here. In castles. But you know what? You gotta make chess fun. You gotta love it. It's like you gotta say, you know what? I'm feeling spunky today, and I wanna go boom. on the position, and that's what Magnus does. He goes, I want to punch, and the only way he can do a big 1-2 KO is to castle queenside, so he can fling his pawns, or as Bob Ross says, flick them, just flick them up the board. By the way, if you were thinking about playing knight takes e5, this is an interesting continuation. I know you're probably wondering what about that. You would probably would ask if you were viewing, what is that move there? And then e takes, and you're going, huh? Can't you just grab this? Can't you just grab this? Yeah, you could, but the problem is if you grab it, it's a double question mark blunder for black. Because what would actually happen at this point is rook to e1 here. And now there's a problem. But I think, let me see, is there anything better though? Oh, knight takes d f5 here is actually the best. Okay, knight takes f5, and at that point castles queenside and queen to g4 here, and now you're in a lot of problem because you're gonna have to basically walk over to a. You're gonna have to basically walk the king over, and you actually play rook a e1, and now black's the one that has a problem now. He's gonna lose a piece, so not good, not good. And they see those moves, so that's why that's why man is castled here. Now potentially he has this idea of taking. Now, because it's less effective when with the kings over there to begin with, because he actually gets a free tempo to walk to a8, and then he's safe. Safe. That's the name of the game. Oh, wait a second. Okay, let's see. What did I appreciate your patience. There's actually another line back here. Just give me a second to put it in. Knight takes f5. Let's see if they continue down our not this one here. Delete this. Knight takes f5 is the best continuation here. Then there's king f8. They're saying king f8 is the best. Queen to h5 here. White's completely winning. So if let me see here, if it's 6. If f6 here, knight f6. This is a continuation here. Knight f6, queen d3, attack the pawn, double attack it. Then you have the idea of playing c4 here, and I think if c4 is played, you're going to probably want to play. Is it queen? Takes c5, the f5 here, yeah. Queen takes f5, then h5 here. Get some attack going. A to e1, rook a e1, and then you have h4. Black still has a slight advantage. Knight g6. That's an exclam continuation here. Very strong move. Because you're taking advantage of this, and you're also taking advantage. There's a pin here and an attack here. King a. Let me see here. b6 check to get out of there. King h1. Pawn takes check. And then queen takes g6 check. King d8. So goes the march, the last march of the Black King. F5, in comes the pieces. Here they come. Roll, 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 roll. Queen c5, or bishop c5. And now everything's hanging by, as I like to say, a thread. This is a nightmare for black. Black's kind of helpless to an attack by white, even though the edge is giving black an advantage. It'd be really hard for black to really get any counterplay in this line because of how many pieces are scoping the king. Hey, how you doing? And so this is a game between Magnus Carlsen versus Augustus. No, sorry, Augustus versus Magnus Carlsen. And Magnus Carlsen is black, and he played the French classical stylus variation. Okay, so that was that line, but they didn't do that line, so they castled. They played. Magnus played very wisely and castled. He didn't go down any silly continuations, as I like to say. Any risky continuations. He wants to play for an advantage, not to get trounced in the middle game. Okay, so we have Queen H5 here. Let me see. What am I missing here? So castles, Queen H5. Where's H5? Where castles? So castles. Okay, white plays Queen H5. That's it. So I wanted to make sure I had the notes correctly. And then knight takes E5. F takes E5. Queen takes E5. In for a penny, in for a pound, as I like to say. And rook A to E1. This puts scope and attacks the queen. It dominates now the full open line. Augustus is trying to say that yes, you got an extra pawn, Magnus, but you're gonna have to hold for a little bit to justify. But like, there's a lot of grandmasters that say that if you can grab a pawn like Magnus did, and you can go up a whole pawn, you should do it so that you can actually hold, an advantage. And then if you can hold it throughout the game, even if it takes some complications to get it, you're going to be better. Your opponent's going to have to prove their pawn sacrifice. Like that. That's a lot. I think it was. Yeah. It was Yazur said that. Maurice Ashley said that. Grandmaster Maurice Ashley. I'm not sure if Grandmaster Christian actually said that. I think even Var actually. I think he wasn't really into giving up Varakovian. I don't think he was into giving up pawns or taking pawns to risk. He was more of a solid player. So you have your balance. You have your positional versus your more attacker players, and so Magnus is more of an attacker, and actually he's balanced at attacking. Whatever he needs to be, he'll do. And so that's why he's not afraid to go in for this. He also acquired a very important goal that we always talk about with black. Black tried to always annihilate these center pawns for white, and by acquiring basically these pawns being removed from the board, white doesn't really have any advantage. Either black doesn't have any advantage either, because eventually it's going to have to give up a pawn here because there's more pieces attacking. So this pawn's going to fall. He can't keep it, but he acquired an important setup though of getting rid of the central pawns. So it's anybody's game at this present moment. And he has a dark square bishop versus a knight. So the advantage of a dark square bishop in an endgame is if there's pawns on both sides of the board here. If there's pawns on this side and pawns on this side, the bishop reigns supreme because they can scope right there. They can scope this way and this way. Where a knight takes this many moves, it takes about 2 to 3 moves to really get anywhere. A bishop could do it in one move. So that's why. But if there's pawns, this is just some endgame knowledge that I learned from grandmasters. Is if there's pawns only on one side of the board, the knight reigns supreme over the bishop because the knight can actually stick towards the pawns and protect. So you have to look at the position. That's why being a balanced player and understanding the power of your pieces will actually help you improve in all areas, the opening, the middle, and the end game. Okay, we're going to continue onward. We're at 17 here. Queen D, D4 check. Very, very good move. This makes it so that the king has to move, and then you could actually get the bishop out of the way. You're going to lose a pawn, so how are you going to lose that pawn? And that's the whole idea that Magnus is setting up here. Okay, so we're at 17. Check, king h1. You could play rook to f2, but that's not a very good move. You wouldn't want to pin, and then the king can't walk away. So king h1, best move. Okay, white is down 2 pawns. Yeah, understands he will win them back since the f pawn is weak here, and the other so f5 is weak and f7 is weak. Even though he's down 2 pawns, Magnus can't really hold these 2 pawns. There's no way he can. And at that point, it'll be equal material. It's going to be who has the superior mobilization of pieces. And Magnus at the present moment has better pieces in the game. But White's going to try to, if they can, get rid of these pawns here and play with their knight against pawns on one side of the board. And also White would be able to get pass pawn. So 2 pass pawns or 1 pass pawn, where Black is going to get a pass pawn on the queen side, White will get a pass pawn on the king side, and it'll be who can get their pawns rolling down the board first. White is offside, so if there was a pass pawn outside passer, and let's say all these pieces were gone, and it just came down to like this pawn here, if there's only this pawn versus this pawn, and there were no pieces on the board. These were gone, these were gone, these were gone, and these were gone. Black would win because Black's king is closer. Oops, sorry. Black's king is closer to the pawn, where it would take White like 2 more moves to get over there. Black, it only takes them 2 less moves, and therefore they have a superior advantage. And grandmasters look at these setups in their king positions, and that's how they decide kind of what route or skeleton that they want in their endgame. And so it's pretty impressive. Bobby Fischer, just a little conversation about that. Bobby Fischer had a problem with pawns for a while, so he took some time off, and he learned pawn structure, and it really helped him to play better in his game as chess. And so so that's something that maybe if you're having an issue with like how to position your pieces, maybe you could take a moment and study just pawns and see the power of the pawns and how your pieces work in coordination with the pawns, and you'll be able to start to see how all these pieces start flowing to their proper locations, because you'll understand that a knight belongs here if there's a certain pawn structure, a bishop belongs here if there's a certain pawn structure, the rooks belong in certain areas. It just comes with time and dedication to basically what you want as a chess player. Okay, so we're at king h1. Oh, queen to h4. This is actually a very strong continuation. This actually allows Magnus spots one thing that we just talked about. that his king is closer to the white's passed pawn. So if he could trade pieces off and there's a passed pawn, black could stop it where white wouldn't be able to stop black's passer. And so that's why he's starting to trade off. I think we talked about this yesterday. Grandmaster Joel Benjamin has a book called Liquidation on the Chessboard, and he talks about at moments in the game, grandmasters know when to actually trade down. And so Magnus is okay trading his queen off to alleviate some of the pressure of the white's attack. And so you just have to get you have to get to know the position, as I like to say. Yeah. Well, it depends on the style and the time. That's always been a question that most people will take a second to talk about. Is Fischer or Kasparov the best player in the world? I don't know. I think that Magnus Carlsen's the best player in the world, in my opinion. I think Fischer, maybe in his prime, could challenge Magnus Carlsen. Probably it would be an interesting battle to see Fischer in his prime and Kasparov. Probably they're equal. See, remember the ELO rating, Dr. ELO rating didn't come out during Fischer's time. It took a little bit. It was later on in Fischer's play, so it's hard to tell who would actually win in this position. They both have different play styles. Like Gary's more of a attacker by nature, and Bobby is more of whatever you have to be to win. He doesn't care. He's kind of more like an Alakine. That's the question that most people have asked. Is Alakine better than Fischer too? They ask that. They're different, They're different players. That of course each one would say they are, but unless we actually had a game for them to play each other, we truly wouldn't know because they were both super strong players, but different eras. Remember, the Kasparov was the computer era, where Fischer was self-learned era without a computer. So in his time, he was superior, probably with an engine, probably with an engine. If they both had engines and they both had trained, I think it would actually be a draw. I think it's equal. I believe it's equal. I think they both would put in the time because if Kasparov knew that he was facing Bobby Fischer and Bobby Fischer knew he was facing Kasparov, they both would train super duper hard. So I think it would basically be equal. I think it would actually be a draw. I think they're both powerful players in their own style. So I would give it a 50-50 chance each side for strength because nobody really knows. That would be an interesting thing though to actually do. I always wondered why nobody ever had an AI system play as Bobby Fischer in his prime, and then an AI system play as Kasparov in their prime, and actually put those AI systems together and challenge and see who would actually win. That would be a a very good thing. I would like to watch that. That'd be great. But sadly, Bobby Fischer wasn't in his prime, and he's passed away. And it'd be interesting to find out, if they actually did play. I would enjoy it. Hey, how you doing? Oh, nah. Well, we're just talking a little bit about player styles, player strengths, and different eras of play, and how computers have really revolutionized grandmaster chess strength. And it's kind of hard when, yeah. Oh yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm glad you're good. I'm good too. But okay, back to that. That was fun. I always like I those are questions that are fun to kind of talk about every once in a while. Is who's the best player? Sadly, I don't know. I really don't know. I think, in my opinion, they both it would be an equal game, but I have no idea. I know that Bobby Fischer during his time was the greatest player ever in his era, and Kasparov was the greatest player of his time, so they probably would be equally matched. I know that's like you wanted a complete answer. I don't know. I really don't know. You have to sometimes. A lot of people don't want to say that they don't know, and it would be fun to find out, but sadly we don't have those two players in their primes, and one's not alive right now to even try to face Gary. So it would be interesting though to see. So there's knight to f5. They were talking that if queen takes here, queen takes f5, is actually a slight inaccuracy move here. It's not the best because of queen d6. Oops. What? What in the world? Queen. Oh, my bad there. I took the wrong one here. This is the mistake that they're talking about. Queen, bishop d6. And now black's the one with the counter striking ability. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. But Magnus didn't fall for that. So he played queen takes, and he's actually doing rather well here. Knight takes. It's an equal position. Now it's who's stronger. Like when it comes down to who's the better player. Who's the better player? So rook d7 here, and then rook takes f. Remember what was talked about, that white would acquire both their pawns back. They got both their pawns back, and I think white might have just a slight advantage, even though the engine says that it's a zero position. I think white has a very slight advantage. There's only one difference though. Black does have superior mobilized pieces at the present moment. This knight on the rim is, as they say, grim. So this knight isn't very attractive. If it was probably here, if this knight was over here, it probably would be maybe a point 0.3 advantage for white, because the rooks would be better, the knight would be in its optimum spot, so it'd probably be a slight advantage. So at this point, it's more equal because each side has their disadvantage. Bishop to d8 here. This allows for more exchanges to happen, and it goes into our idea where who has the best pass pawn or queen potential. Black does, which is Magnus. Magnus's king is, in theory, closer to white's passers, where white's king is farther away from Magnus's passers here on this side. And one of them's going to become a queen. One of these guys is going to get queened, and it might go to a draw with proper play, but the Augustus is going to have to really prove it, as I like to say. He's not just gonna go down there and just fall into Magnus's hands. He's gonna try to have Magnus prove it. B6. This was an interesting move. Most of us would probably have traded, but if you didn't understand your endgame, I should say, if you didn't understand endgame as much as Team Chess Crutcher has been studying and improving in their play, you would take here. But the problem is, it feeds into Magnus's plan of liquidating and then getting this rook off the board, and the king takes, and then maybe even get a bishop up here, and then you take, and then let's just say the king gets here. You're going to be able to stop this by the passed pawn play here. It's going to be great. This is getting interesting. Both sides aren't not given an inch of space for it to each other. Magnus played b6 here, which is actually a really strong move. He's going to want to eventually play d4 here, and try to get a really strong pawn chain happening. And then if like maybe if white tried c4 here, Magnus could, let's say white tried c4 here, Magnus could actually play d4. Then he's got a protected pass pawn further down the board than his opponent. And he's got pieces on the board to actually escort it down the board. So very dangerous. So white actually has to be really careful here. Magnus has his pawns just storming up the board. It reminds me of in the football game where you have a really good line. You have the line, and the QB can trust his line. Magnus can trust these pawns. These are like solid. These pawns are solid. They're not going anywhere. This is kind of sketchy, these two pawns. So you just got to be careful. You don't have this massive pawn chain to, you basically pummel through, right through the center. Okie dokie. So d4, knight f6, and f4 here, and then there's d4. We were correct. There was a d4 move that was played. In this ending, we have opposite wings, like what we were talking about. White pieces are more aggressively placed, so black has pawns further down the board. White has more pieces that are positioned more aggressively. Black's bishop has more potential and is superior to the knight. And that's why the engine grades this as a 0 position. Even though white has more attacking pieces in the game. More attacking pieces in the game here. And this knight well placed. This bishop counters this knight here wonderfully. These rooks can easily come into the game. These two rooks here. And then it's on. It's on. That's what I like to say. Bring it. Bring it. Bring it. b3. This is black's. You got to be careful when you start pushing pawns on the side where the majority is for your opponent, because your opponent welcomes the aggression, and they might even build up a plan based on that aggression by maybe mobilizing the bishop, doubling up the rooks, and trying to get their pawns mobilized, something like this, and just crash down the board. You kind of don't want to help your opponent, but if you know what you're doing, like this does for a while put a stop to black's advance, because he's going to need a couple buddies to come up and help break this down here. Where white doesn't really have as much of a problem with these guys, but remember, they're back on their starting squares. So black has some time to coordinate his pieces better, get them involved, and get them behind the pawns and start rolling the boys out, as I like to say, the boys and the girls. So b3, bishop c7, very good move. He's trying to get the bishop and knight off the board. Then he'll get to a rook endgame and a king endgame, where if he could trade one set of the rooks off, if he could trade this off and this off, he can actually escort with his king off the board and get these pawns queened. One of them, these pawns will be queened. Yeah, this is getting fun. I like these type of games. Knight d3, right here. The knight's doing the best job that he can. He's kind of putting a restraint of a stop to these pawns. He's doing something called blockading. A knight's wonderful when it comes to blockading, because They resonate when, especially in this position, they resonate their power this way. These are the squares that the knight resonates their power of, their massive power. See, I'll show you right here. I'll highlight them. Where even though if a bishop was here, the bishop would only have this amount of scope. It would be a good piece to barricade, but not as strong as a knight. A knight dominates when it's in the center. It's just like, it's huge. It's great. Some players like knights over bishops. I think they asked Anon what was his favorite piece. He likes the knights. Some people like the bishops, but not in all situations where a bishop's good. It was kind of funny for a while. Um, the computers favored their bishops over their knights until they started becoming learning engines, and you could always kind of manipulate and beat a computer by threatening their bishops. They would retreat their bishops to save it at all costs. It was kind of funny how the old computers, you could beat them that way. You could actually outmaneuver them because all you'd have to do is attack their bishop and they would move it back. It's kind of a little bit of computer history before they got, to like 3500 and beyond rating. It's kind of like the Star Trek, Buzz Lightyear to infinity and beyond. That's what computers are now for their calculating, crunching ability. So 30, 25, 93. Rook G8. Nice. This nice counter thrust for Magnus. I like this move. I like Rook G8. I see that he's potentially trying to prevent his. He's saying, if you're going to prevent me, I'm going to try to prevent you from doing what you want. And what you want is to get your pawns rolling. But if I can double up my rooks, I can prevent you from a distance. That's that song, From a Distance. That type of stuff. These rooks are singing to the pawns. You're going to stay there from a distance. Okay, so after that, King G. Wait a second. G3 here. This is an idea of trying to mobilize the king into the center. Rook C6. Rook C6. Let me see, where am I? Wait a second, what am I missing here? Hold on, give me a second. Oh, black's rook to C6. Oh, I must have, did I miss something here? Hold on. G6. G3. Oh. I'm so glad I took a second. I was one move ahead of myself. It's a good thing I checked, because I was like, how did black get rook G6? Then I'm like, silly me, you just move up one. As I like to say, Silly Willy the Penguin. That's taken from Night at the Museum. King G. And now, C6. Woohoo! This is a great continuation. He's getting his move in. This is stellar. Excellent. He's going to get wonderful move by Magnus. Wonderful. He did a rover, a rook up and over. And he's now going to get C5 in. Beautiful. And there's no way to stop that. No way to stop C5. Not one way. And so this is crushing. This move's a game changer, in my opinion. Probably it could be stopped, but White's gonna have to give some time up to stop it. Let me see. So rook there. Let's see. Rook G. Oh, knight. Rook to E2. rook e2. It is considered an interesting continuation. It's preparing to, if Magnus does get this break in, why it's preparing to protect the c2 pawn. So he's protecting and preparing rook ef2, which is a good idea, a good move there. c4, Magnus, you know what? If you in for a penny, in for a pound, b takes c, rook takes c4, rook h5, with the idea of potentially later on playing that way, are actually preparing the push. Push, my friends, push. Excuse me. Okie dokie, so c, knight, knight there, king, okay, a4, rook a4. If you see a weak pawn, attack a weak pawn. Okay, what move are we on? 30? Okay. Knight c1. Magnus just pushed a piece back, and so now he's able to um, basically get his attack rolling now. Okay, so let's see, what do we got here? King b7, and rook d2. After rook d2, a6. And now he's trying to get his pawns, his other set of pawns rolling. Rook h4. I gotta say something. Augustus is doing his best, his darndest. Let me see here. Then he's got a6, rook h4, bishop d8, attack the rook. So Magnus is putting all of his pieces to their optimum placement. King h5, rook h5, I mean. b5, and the pawns are starting to advance. Knight b3 is a dubious move. The knight is threatening to win this, but really, do you want to give Magnus a pass pawn after rook takes? Actually, bishop b6. Interesting. That's interesting. I was wondering what would happen if you take here. Oh, Nikes. Ouch. That's why bishop b6. The sweet spot, guarding the sweet spot. And now preparing to play pawn, rook takes. c3. Another dubious continuation. d3. Now Magnus has acquired a passed pawn. Knight c1. Attacking that passed pawn. Bishop a5 exclam here. So that if rook takes, rook takes, knight takes, bishop takes. And now Magnus is farther down the board, and he's going to queen. Yay! Rook takes. Here comes the mass exchanges. Rook takes. Let me see here. Let me make sure. Rook takes d3. Rook takes d3. Knight takes d3. Rook takes check. King f3. And then bishop takes c. Rook takes check. So now they have a interesting continuation. Pawns on both sides of the board, even though they're your pawns versus your opponent's pawns, the pawns are on opposite sides of the board. This bishop reigns supreme over this knight. So now, if Magnus could get these two rooks traded off here, he'd be winning, completely winning. This is a completely winning game. So now after that, check king c6, g4, b3, no, yeah, cg4, b4, g5, b3, g6. This is going to be interesting here. There's one move that you need to play here. It's black to move, and if you could find this move, you've got a sure win here. This is a trick move that black has, and it's the only move that actually will win for black. I'll give you a second to think about it. If you're on YouTube, Twitch, or Kick, you can put in the answer on one of those. I can see all those chats, so you just put in which one you want, and we'll look at each one of those. I'll give you less than not a half minute. I'll give you about 15 seconds. So I'm gonna get a drink, and that'll give me time to get a drink, and you to analyze the position. Black to move, only move that wins. Only move. Oh, perfect. Okay, now we're back. If you were thinking of pushing this pawn, it's good, but remember, you're gonna have to. It might go to a draw because the knight will take here. If the bishop takes, then white will play. Oops, white will play g7 here, and the bishop will take the pawn. The rook will take the pawn, and it'll be these pawns and a rook versus a rook. And I don't think that that wouldn't be good enough. That's not good enough. If you thought of rook like a1 to kind of get in behind this pawn, very good idea. But again, it doesn't deal with this problem of being able to push to b2. It's a good move though, but not the best move. And if you considered the best continuation, rook to d2, congratulations, excellent job, wonderful job. You basically are now pointing the finger at at white and saying, you cannot, you have to move your king, and what's going to happen is after I take here, I'm going to push. There's that, and also there's the king getting mobilized. So there's a lot of pressure here. This is an excellent move. King e3 is forced. And what we're going to talk about really quick is what would happen if b2 here. This is actually considered a mistake because of knight takes, rook takes, and then g4. Let's see. They're saying h4 here. I don't know. I probably would play this. I think it's still equal. It's a draw actually at this point. But Black wants more out of the position, so he plays rook d8 here, or d2, and rook king e3. Best continuation. Rook g2. So the idea was to play rook g2. Interesting. That's the winner. Okay, I thought it was taken, but I was trying to make this taking work here. But the king's just in time. See, if you take here and you take, try to push, the king gets there just in time. So you can't really take this knight. The whole basis idea was to draw the king away from the protection of g2, so that rook to g2 would be a playable continuation. So that if they tried to push, he could actually play rook takes at this point, and then let me see something. I want to make sure. H6. This is a completely losing. This is a double question mark blunder. Completely losing. And this is the exclam continuation. King f3. Bishop takes. King takes. And then a5. Knight to b2. And then king b5. And his opponent resigned at this point. It's good. That was a completely losing move, because the bishop. There's no way that these pawns can actually get pushed anymore. Even if it got to h5, the king's too far away, and Magnus is going to win via his advancing in. There's no way to actually win. It's over. And that was actually a really good game. A good example of positional understanding, tactic understanding, and the ability of having a proper plan. Like back here, the author has one comment, and then we'll call it on this. Hey, how you doing? Good. How you doing? If you guys like what you see and you're on, and you want to help on Kick, Twitch, or YouTube, either subscribe, follow on them would be much appreciated. And my YouTube one is Chess Cruncher, and so you guys could follow over on YouTube if you want Chess Cruncher. Okay, that'd be much appreciated to help with building up the subscriber amount on YouTube. Thank you much. But okay, back to what we were saying here. At this point, it's right here. This is the Rubinstein variation, where Magnus decided to actually take here. Or sorry, the Burn variation, Burn. And this stopped all of Black's, ideas of his, because we're going back all the way to the very beginning. This stopped all of Black's ideas of trying to get his central majority and play with these two pawns here. Magnus nuked one of them, or got rid of one of them, I mean. And at that point, White doesn't have any central play. And if White doesn't understand beyond the central pawns this here, White's going to be thrown into a big confusion. If they don't understand the burn variation of the classic, they're going to take. And then Magnus played a very interesting continuation at this point. The author stopped at e takes and says that Black actually had a superior position at that point. But this was I think that there are two critical moves: the d takes e4, and what piece to take with after bishop takes f6. If you're wanting more of a positional equal game, you would want to play bishop takes bishop, knight takes knight, knight takes bishop, and then queen takes, and then it'd be who has the best player strength at that point. But Mattis didn't want to play that way. He wanted to play more aggressive. He wanted to go basically into theoretical knowledge, and this move right here is a very theoretical move. You have to know what you're doing as Black, otherwise you're going to be worse. Because this broke up your pawn chain here. You don't have a complete pawn chain, but beforehand, if you did take here and then here and here, you would have a symmetrical game almost, because you would have the same. White would have one advantage. They'd have a further advanced pawn, but that's weak. So Black has a compact pawn structure, and White has a compact pawn structure. If they can get B, if C3 got put in, it would be who's the stronger player at this point. And some players like this, that they as Black, they don't want to be too aggressive. They want to either have the opportunity of a three decision on the board, which is a draw, a loss, draw, or a win. And this gives you all those. This move here is after you take with the pawn. This is all in. This is like throwing the whole kitchen sink and the chairs and the furniture and the refrigerator out. You're either all in and theory, or you're gonna be in a deep trouble with Black. But of course, if you want to study that variation, the burn variation, you can in openings. It's fun. I've done it. I don't like this type of takes. I normally usually take with my bishop because I like more of a structure where I can outplay my opponent. But some players, it's what you feel at that time. So just wanted to give you a little bit of critical points in the game. This was a critical point. Later on, there were some other criticals, but I'll let you watch it on the video, and you can find the critical points along with us. Okay, thank you again all for viewing, listening, and sticking with me through all this. A lot of knowledge, a lot of training, but in the end, it's going to make you a better player, my friends. It's hard to put aside, on Lord of the Rings, the Ranger. The Ranger that a lot, like International Master Andrew Martin says, you have to have the discipline to do 90% study, 10% play. And he also talked about, my Grandmaster teachers taught me, and even International Master Andrew Martin talks about, you want to have games that are at least 10 minutes and beyond, so that you can actually implement what you're learning here. Otherwise, you're just playing on winning against the clock. And when you go to a classical game play, where it's an hour and 30 minutes with 30 minutes incremental added on, you're not gonna do as well. And there's a lot of grandmasters that those fast games have ruined them. So unless you have a lot of theory and understanding on the board, and you come in with a lot, Playing those games will end up making you not as strong of a player as longer games and learning this type of understanding. So you want to become a strong player. You have to study. So that's just a little bit of a what I learned. Okay, again, thank you on YouTube, thank you on Twitch, and thank you on Kick for all viewing. Remember what Bruce Lee says: take what you know. Actually, willing is not enough. You must do. Yeah, sorry. I think it's yeah. Willing is not enough. You must apply. Yeah. He talks about the principles that you have to take what you know and be doing with it, and be willing and work with it. Otherwise, what will happen, my friends, is you'll have all this knowledge, but you won't be able to practice it. If you don't practice it, like maybe with an engine, you're not going to be able to implement it. That's why playing isn't bad. It's the short games that aren't good. You want to have longer games to get to be able to use your knowledge. And so that's the whole thing. Our motto is, you know what? Take what you know and be willing to do something with it. And treasure your victories. That's the Chess Cruncher mottos. And learn from your losses. And remember that mistakes do not define who you are. It's how you handle a mistake defines who you are as a chess player and in whatever area the Lord has called you into. There's decisions in chess, and there's an ultimate decision, my friends, that we all have to make one day. Whom will we serve and what will we do with the Lord Jesus Christ? Will we receive him as Lord and Savior of our life, or will we reject him? It's a decision that affects eternity, my friends, and I pray that you make that decision today. It's a personal decision that everybody has to make throughout their life. So I pray you make that. And again, thank you all for viewing. And if you like what you see, follow or subscribe. And I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. See ya.